Dr. Keiko Park took a deep breath as the massive airlock doors of Aurora Prime slid open with a soft hiss. The luxury space station stretched before her like a floating palace among the stars. Crystal walls caught and reflected the light from 3 different suns, creating rainbow patterns that danced across the polished floors. She had never seen anything quite like it. Her simple black dress felt suddenly inadequate as she walked through corridors lined with rare metals from distant worlds. Other guests glided past in flowing gowns that seemed to defy gravity, their jewelry sparkling with gems that could only be found in the asteroid belts of the outer systems. Keiko clutched her small purse tighter, feeling like an outsider in this world of unimaginable wealth. The wedding invitation had been a surprise. Dr. Hannah Kim, her former research partner, had sent it 3 months ago with a handwritten note that simply said, "Please come. Keiko, I need at least one real friend there." They had worked together 5 years ago on Mars, digging through ancient ruins that most people thought were just interesting rocks. But Hannah had left the dirty work of archaeology behind when she met Lee Ji-won, the tech mogul who owned half the communication satellites in the solar system. Now, Hannah was marrying into one of the richest families in human space, and Keiko was walking through their world feeling like she had dirt under her fingernails, which, to be honest, she probably did. She had arrived on Aurora Prime just 6 hours ago, having caught the first transport from the research station orbiting Kepler-4b. There had barely been time to shower and change before the ceremony. The main reception hall opened up before her like something from a dream. The ceiling was transparent, offering a perfect view of the swirling nebula that surrounded the station. Hundreds of guests mingled beneath floating chandeliers that seemed to be made of captured starlight. Tea servers glided between them on silent, anti-gravity platforms, carrying trays of food that Keiko couldn't even identify. She spotted Hannah across the room, radiant in a wedding dress that seemed to be woven from moonbeams. Their eyes met for a moment, and Hannah's face lit up with genuine joy. She started to move toward Keiko, but was immediately surrounded by a group of well-wishers who wanted to congratulate the bride. "Look, they even invited their help," came a voice behind Keiko, pitched just loud enough for her to hear clearly. Keiko turned to see an older woman in a gown that probably cost more than most people made in a year. Diamonds covered nearly every inch of the fabric, and her hair was styled in an elaborate design that must have taken hours to create. This had to be Mrs. Song, Ji-won's mother. The woman's eyes swept over Keiko with the kind of cold assessment usually reserved for livestock. I suppose Hannah felt she needed to invite some of her old colleagues. Mrs. Song continued to her companion, a thin man with cybernetic implants that marked him as old money from the Mars colonies. Though I can't imagine what they have in common anymore. Keiko's jaw tightened, but she kept her expression neutral. She had learned long ago that showing anger only gave people like this more ammunition instead. She moved away from the pair and found a spot near one of the viewing windows. The nebula outside pulsed with colors that had no names. Keiko had seen it before, of course, but never from this angle. Aurora Prime was positioned at the perfect point to catch the light from all 3 local stars as they filtered through the cosmic dust. It was beautiful enough to make her forget, for a moment, about the uncomfortable situation she found herself in. Admiring the view, came another voice, this one male and carrying the kind of confidence that came from never having to worry about money. Keiko turned to see a man in his 50s. His suit clearly tailored from some exotic fabric that shifted colors as he moved. His smile was friendly enough, but his eyes held the same calculating look she had seen in Mrs. Song. "It's beautiful," Keiko said simply. "Yes. We had the station positioned specifically to showcase it. I'm Choi Minho. By the way, I own most of the mining operations in this sector." He extended a hand that was soft and clearly unused to physical labor. "And you are?" "Dr. Keiko Park. I work in xenoarchaeology. A scientist." His smile became slightly less genuine. "How fascinating. And where exactly do you practice your archaeology?" "Dr. Park. Currently in Kepler-440b. We're excavating what appear to be ruins from a previous civilization." Minho's laugh was polite but dismissive. "Oh, yes. I've heard about those digs, playing in the dirt on dead worlds, looking for trinkets. Must be quite the adventure for someone like you." The phrase "someone like you" hung in the air between them, loaded with implications that Keiko chose not to address directly. She had heard variations of it her entire career, usually from people who thought archaeology was just an expensive hobby for people who couldn't handle real science. "It's actually quite challenging work," she said instead. "The conditions on Furfurtabi are harsh, and the ruins we're studying are unlike anything we've encountered before." "I'm sure they are." Minho's attention was already wandering to someone more important across the room. "Well, enjoy the party, Dr. Park, and do try the Andromedan caviar. It's quite expensive." He walked away before Keiko could respond, leaving her alone by the window again. She watched his reflection in the crystal as he rejoined a group of similarly dressed men and women, all of them laughing at some joke she couldn't hear, but she could guess what it was about. This was going to be a long evening, the reception hall buzzed with the kind of conversations that only happened when the galaxy's richest people gathered in one place. Keiko caught fragments as she moved through the crowd. Someone bragging about buying an entire moon, another discussing their latest investment in a terraforming project on the edge of known space. The air itself seemed thick with wealth and privilege. She found herself drawn to the quantum glass viewing wall, where the stars outside seemed close enough to touch. The technology was incredible. The glass wasn't really glass at all, but a field of controlled energy that made the barrier between inside and outside almost disappear. Through it, she could see cargo ships moving between the station and nearby planets, their running lights blinking like fireflies against the cosmic darkness. "The view never gets old, does it?" came a voice behind her. Keiko turned to see a young woman about her age, wearing a dress that probably cost more than Keiko's entire research budget for a year. The woman's smile seemed genuine enough, which was a relief after the cold reception she'd gotten from most of the other guests. "It's beautiful," Keiko agreed. "I've been working in space for years, but I've never seen anything quite like this." "I'm Park Sora. By the way, I think we might be distantly related. Park family, you know." The woman's laugh was light and friendly. "What do you do?" "I'm an archaeologist, Dr. Keiko Park. I study ancient civilizations on distant worlds." Sora's eyes lit up with interest. "Really? That sounds fascinating. Have you found anything interesting lately?" Before Keiko could answer, a loud voice cut through their conversation like a blade through silk. "Dr. Park, isn't it?" Keiko turned to see Minho approaching with what looked like half the wedding party trailing behind him. His smile was the kind that sharks probably wore right before they attacked. All teeth and no warmth. The group that followed him looked like a pack of predators who had caught the scent of prey, still playing in the dirt on dead planets. "I hear," Minho continued, his voice carrying across the nearby conversations and drawing attention from other guests. "How quaint." The laughter that followed was sharp and cruel. Keiko felt her face burn with embarrassment, but she kept her expression neutral. She had learned long ago that showing weakness to people like this only made them attack harder. "At least someone's keeping the museum stocked," added a woman who stepped forward from the group. She was tall and elegant, with the kind of perfect features that came from expensive genetic modifications. This had to be Yuna, Minho's wife. Her voice dripped with condescension as she looked Keiko up and down like she was examining something unpleasant on the bottom of her shoe. I mean, someone has to dig up the old junk, right? Yuna continued, getting more laughter from the crowd. Otherwise, how would we know what failure looks like? Park's Sora shifted uncomfortably beside Keiko, but didn't say anything. The social pressure in this group was clearly too strong for anyone to risk defending an outsider. I suppose we all need our little hobbies, Minho said, swirling his champagne in a gesture that somehow managed to be both casual and dismissive at the same time. Though I can't imagine how you afford to attend events like this on a professor's salary. More snickers rippled through the group. Someone in the back made a comment about charity cases that drew even more laughter. Keiko's hands clenched at her sides, her nails digging into her palms as she fought to keep her composure. I mean, seriously, Yuna continued, apparently not content to let the matter drop. What could you possibly hope to find out there that would be worth anything? Dead aliens, broken machines, the whole galaxy belongs to humanity now. Why waste time studying the losers who came before us? The crowd round them was growing larger as more guests were drawn by the spectacle. Keiko could feel their eyes on her, could hear the whispered comments and barely suppressed laughter. She was being turned into entertainment for these people, a curiosity to be mocked and dismissed. Actually, Keiko began, her voice steady despite the humiliation burning in her chest. The civilizations we study were far more advanced than... Oh, please. Minho interrupted with a wave of his hand. If they were so advanced, where are they now? Dead and buried. That's where. Meanwhile, human beings are spreading across the galaxy, building stations like this one, creating real wealth and real power. He gestured round the luxurious reception hall, and several people in the crowd nodded in agreement. This is what success looks like. Dr. Park, not digging through ruins on some forgotten world that nobody cares about. Before Keiko could respond, his server approached from the left. The young man was clearly new to the job, nervous and trying to balance a tray of drinks while navigating through the crowd. He looked at Keiko, took in her simple black dress and the fact that she was standing apart from the clearly wealthy guests, and made an assumption. "Excuse me, miss," he said, extending the tray toward her. "Could you take these to table 12? I'm running behind." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the background chatter of the reception seemed to pause as everyone realized what had just happened. The server had mistaken Keiko for a member of the staff. The laughter that erupted from Minho's group was loud and vicious. Yuna actually doubled over, clutching her stomach as she laughed. "Oh my God," she gasped between giggles. "Even the help recognizes their own kind." "This is perfect," Minho said, his voice filled with malicious glee. "Dr. Park, maybe you should consider a career change. You're clearly better suited for service work than scientific research." The server's face went pale as he realized his mistake. He started to stammer an apology, but his words were lost in the continuing laughter from the crowd. More guests had gathered now, drawn by the commotion, and the circle round Keiko had grown to include nearly 30 people. Keiko stood frozen in the center at all. The tray of drinks still extended toward her, feeling like she was trapped in a nightmare. The humiliation was complete and total. She had been reduced to nothing more than a joke, a source of amusement for these people who had never worked a day in their lives. But even as the laughter continued round her, even as she felt her face burning with shame, a small part of her mind remained calm and analytical. These people had no idea what she had really found on Kepler for it to be. They had no idea that everything they thought they knew about the galaxy was about to change forever. The laughter around Keiko seemed to go on forever, each chuckle and snicker Feeling like a physical blow, she stood there holding the tray of drinks, watching as Minho's wife Yuna wiped tears from her eyes. Still giggling at what she clearly thought was the funniest thing she'd ever seen. The server who had made the mistake looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "I'm so sorry," the young man whispered, finally finding his voice. "I didn't mean to. Don't worry about it," Keiko said quietly, setting the tray down on a nearby table. Her voice was steady, but inside she felt like she was crumbling. 5 years of her life dedicated to the most important archaeological discovery in human history. And this was how people saw her: a servant, someone not worth their time or respect. The crowd was starting to disperse now that the show was over. Minho straightened his expensive jacket and gave Keiko one last dismissive look. "Well, this has been entertaining," he said, "but I think it's time we got back to more important matters. Real business, you understand," as he walked away with his group. Keiko heard Yuna's voice carrying back to her. "Can you believe they let people like that into events like this? Standards really have fallen." Keiko closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She had dealt with prejudice and dismissal her entire career. But this felt different. This felt personal. These people weren't just questioning her work. They were questioning her right to exist in their world. That's when she felt it, a soft chime in her head, so quiet that only she could hear it. Her neural implant was receiving an incoming transmission. She had installed the device 3 years ago to help her communicate with her research team across the vast distances of space. It was expensive technology, but necessary for her work on the outer rim. The chime came again, more insistent this time. Keiko opened her eyes and moved to a quieter corner of the reception hall. Near a large sculpture that looked like it was carved from a single piece of meteor rock, she touched the small device behind her ear and activated her AI assistant. "Arya, what's the priority level on this transmission?" she whispered. A hologram materialized in front of her, visible only to her enhanced vision. Arya appeared as a blue-tinted figure about the size of her hand, with features that were both human and somehow otherworldly. The AI had been her constant companion for the past 3 years, helping her navigate the complex challenges of deep space archaeology. "Dr. Park, this is classified as Urgent Priority Alpha," Arya said, her voice carrying the slight electronic undertone that marked her as artificial. "The transmission is from the Kepler 440 to dig site. Dr. Chen is requesting immediate consultation." Keiko's heart skipped a beat. Dr. Chen was her research partner, the one person who had stayed with the project when everyone else had given up. If he was sending an urgent transmission during what should have been his sleep cycle, something big had happened. "Put him through," Keiko said, glancing round to make sure no one was watching her talk to what looked like empty air. The hologram flickered and changed, showing Dr. Chen's tired but excited face. He was still wearing his excavation suit, and Keiko could see the alien ruins behind him through the transparent dome of the research station. "Keiko, thank God you're available," Chen said, his voice crackling with static across the vast distance. "You need to hear this, the quantum resonance chamber, the one we found in the deepest part of the complex. It's not just a relic, it's functional." Keiko felt the world around her fade away. The party, the laughter, the humiliation, none of it mattered anymore. "What do you mean functional?" "I mean, it's still working after who knows how many thousands of years. The power source is something we've never seen before. It's like it's drawing energy directly from the fabric of space itself. And Keiko, we've figured out what it does." Arya's projection expanded, showing technical readouts and star charts that made Keiko's head spin. The numbers were incredible, impossible even. It's a faster-than-light communication and travel network, Chen continued. His excitement obvious even through the static, not just for one system or even one sector. We're talking about the entire galaxy, every single star system we've ever discovered, and thousands more we haven't even found yet. Keiko's legs felt weak. She reached out and steadied herself against the meteor sculpture, not caring if anyone saw her. Are you certain? The network is still active. Keiko, we've detected response signals from over 50,000 nodes across the galaxy. Some of them are in systems so far away that our fastest ships would take centuries to reach them. But with this technology, the journey would take minutes. The implications hit her like a physical blow. Humanity had been struggling to expand across the galaxy for over 2 centuries, limited by the speed of light and the vast distances between stars. Even their most advanced ships could barely manage a few light years per day. But this would change everything. Arya, Keiko whispered. Run preliminary value assessments based on current FTL technology patterns. The AI's processing power kicked into high gear, analyzing markets, patterns, and economic models faster than any human mind could follow. The holographic display filled with numbers, charts, and projections that seemed to glow with their own inner light. Conservative estimate based on current galactic transportation and communication infrastructure. Arya announced after a few seconds that felt like ours. 847 trillion credits, Dr. Park. You've just become the wealthiest individual in human space. Keiko stared at the numbers, unable to process what she was seeing. 847 trillion credits. The entire gross domestic product of Earth was only about 2 trillion credits per year. The richest person at this party, probably Minho himself, was worth maybe a few billion credits at most. Are you sure about those calculations? She asked, her voice barely audible. The projections are conservative. Arya replied, this technology doesn't just represent a new form of transportation. It represents a complete revolution in how humanity interacts with the galaxy. Every government, every corporation, every military force in human space will want access to this network. Round her, the party continued exactly as it had before. The same conversations about stock portfolios and corporate acquisitions, the same laughter and clinking of glasses. The same dismissive glances in her direction from the guests who had just finished humiliating her. But everything had changed. The woman they had just mocked as a dirt-poor archaeologist was now, in the space of a single conversation, the most powerful individual in human civilization. Keiko looked across the reception hall at Minho, who was holding court near the bar, regaling a group of admirers with some story about his latest mining acquisition. He caught her eye for a moment and raised his glass in a mocking salute. Clearly, still amused by her earlier humiliation, she raised her own glass in return, her smile genuine for the first time all evening. He had no idea that his entire fortune, everything he had ever worked for, everything he had ever achieved, was now worth less than a rounding error compared to what she had just discovered. The real show was about to begin. Choi Minho was in the middle of another story about Keiko when she decided it was time. He had gathered an even larger audience now. At least 40 people hanging on his every word as he described her pathetic attempt to play scientist and how she had been mistaken for the help. The laughter was getting louder and more vicious, with each retelling, and then Minho said, gesturing dramatically with his champagne glass, the poor woman just stood there holding the drink tray like she was born to serve. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The crowd erupted in fresh laughter. Keiko watched from across the room's Yuna. Minho's wife actually applauded the performance. These people were enjoying her humiliation like it was the evening's entertainment. But Keiko wasn't the same person who had been standing there 15 minutes ago. The knowledge of what she had discovered, what she now controlled, had transformed her from the inside out. She felt like she was watching the scene from a great height. Seeing these people for what they really were, small, petty creatures, who had mistaken wealth for worth, she straightened her shoulders and began walking toward Minho's group. Her simple black dress suddenly felt like armor, and her steps had a confidence that made several people turn to look at her. The conversations round her began to quiet as she approached. "Oh look," Yuna said with a nasty smile. "She's coming back for more. This should be good." Minho turned to face Keiko, his expression somewhere between amusement and annoyance. "Dr. Park, I hope you're not here to lecture us about the importance of your little dig. We've heard quite enough about rocks and dirt for one evening." "Actually," Keiko said, her voice carrying clearly across the now silent section of the reception hall, "I wanted to share some exciting news about humanity's future among the stars." She reached up and touched the neural implant behind her ear. "Oh yeah, public display mode. Full spectrum." The reaction was immediate and dramatic. The air around them began to shimmer and dance, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Then the holograms materialized, not the small, personal projections that only Keiko could see, but full-sized displays that filled the space round them with light and color. Gasps echoed through the crowd as three-dimensional star charts appeared in the air, showing the entire galaxy in perfect detail. But these weren't static images. The displays were alive with movement and data, showing real-time communications between star systems, shipping routes, and most impressive of all, the vast network of alien technology that spanned the galaxy like a web of light. "What is this?" someone whispered. "Some kind of entertainment system," another voice suggested. But Keiko was just getting started. With a gesture, she called up the financial displays. Numbers began climbing across holographic screens that hung in the air like windows into another world. The bidding war that had erupted in the air since Dr. Chen's discovery was playing out in real time, and the amounts were staggering. 500 trillion credits, she announced, her voice carrying easily across the now silent reception hall. "That's the current bid from the Martian Colonial Authority for limited access to the faster-than-light communication network we discovered on Kepler-440b. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the background music seemed to have stopped. Every eye in the reception hall was fixed on the holographic displays, watching as the numbers continued to climb. 600 trillion from the Jupiter Mining Consortium. Keiko continued, as if she was reading the weather report. 700 trillion from the Earth Defense Fleet. And that's just for communication rights. The transportation network is being bid on separately. Minho's face had gone from its usual healthy tint to a sickly pale color. His champagne glass hung forgotten in his hand as he stared at the displays. This has to be some kind of joke. You're just a what? Mr. Choi." Keiko's smile was serene, almost peaceful. A woman who just handed humanity the keys to the galaxy. She gestured to the star charts, and they zoomed in to show the local sector. Dozens of star systems appeared, each one connected to the others by streams of light that pulsed with alien energy. This network was built by a civilization that existed millions of years before humans even discovered fire. They spanned the entire galaxy, connecting every habitable world, every resource-rich system, every strategic location. The crowd pressed closer, their earlier mockery forgotten as they tried to understand what they were seeing. Park saw her. The young woman who had been kind to Keiko earlier was standing with her mouth open, staring at a display showing instantaneous travel between star systems. "And now," Keiko continued, "this network is functional again, thanks to 5 years of careful, Excavation. 5 years of what you called playing in the dirt. We've figured out how to access it. More holographic displays appeared, showing news feeds from across human space. The discovery was already making headlines on every major network. Stock markets were in chaos as investors tried to understand the implications. Military leaders were calling emergency sessions. Scientists were abandoning their current projects to study the implications. The Galactic Communications Authority is offering 1.2 trillion credits for exclusive access, Arya announced, her voice now audible to everyone in the hall. The bid has been declined. Current highest offer is 1.8 trillion credits from the Allied Worlds Federation. Una, who had been so cruel just minutes before, now looked like she was going to be sick. This can't be real, she whispered. This is impossible. Actually, Keiko said, calling up another display. It's not only possible, it's already happening. The first test transmission was sent 30 minutes ago from Kepler-4 to be to a network node in the Andromeda system. Round trip time, 4 minutes and 17 seconds. The crowd erupted in amazed murmurs. The Andromeda system was over 200 light-years away. With conventional technology, a message would take 2 centuries to reach it. But the alien network had done it in minutes. Dr. Park. Came a new voice from the crowd. It was Li Ji-won, the groom, pushing through the audience with his bride Hannah at his side. Is this really happening? Keiko turned to face her old friend, and for the first time that evening, her smile was completely genuine. Hello, Hannah. Yes, it's really happening. The network we talked about all those years ago. It's real, and it's working. Hannah looked stunned. But the funding, the university said the project was too expensive to continue. They said a lot of things, Keiko replied. They said I was wasting my time. They said the ruins were just random rock formations. They said I should focus on realistic projects. She gestured to the displays around them. This is what realistic looks like. The bidding numbers had reached 1 trillion credits and were still climbing. Corporate representatives were already boarding ships to travel to Aurora Prime, hoping to negotiate in person. Government officials were placing emergency calls to their capitals. The entire structure of galactic civilization was about to change. And it was all happening because of the woman they had been mocking just minutes before. Minho finally found his voice, though it came out as barely more than a croak. But how? You're a nobody. You're just a professor at a minor university. Actually, Keiko said, her voice carrying a note of satisfaction as of about 10 minutes ago, I became the wealthiest individual in human space. Conservative estimates put my net worth at around 800 trillion credits. That's roughly 400 times the combined wealth of everyone at this party. The silence that followed was deafening. In the space of 15 minutes. The woman they had dismissed as a joke had become the most powerful person in the galaxy, and she was just getting started. The wedding reception had transformed into complete chaos. What had been an elegant gathering of the galaxy's elite just minutes before was now a frantic scramble as guests pulled out their personal communicators and frantically checked their stock portfolios. The holographic displays surrounding Keiko continued to show the bidding war in real time, and the numbers were climbing so fast that even Arya was having trouble keeping up. My mining stocks are crushing. Someone wailed from across the room. Everything related to long-distance shipping is in freefall. The entire transportation sector is collapsing. Another voice added, if people can travel instantly between star systems, who needs cargo ships anymore? Keiko stood at the center of it all, as calm as the eye of a hurricane. The holographic displays round her showed incoming calls from every major power in the galaxy. Presidents, prime ministers, corporate CEOs. And even a few alien ambassadors were all trying to reach her at once. The small neural implant. Behind, Hoya was working overtime, filtering and prioritizing the flood of communications. Dr. Park, came Oria's voice, now audible to everyone in the hall. You have 17 priority calls waiting. The President of Earth is holding on line 1. The Martian Colonial Council is on line 2. And the CEO of Galactic Industries is on line 3. Take messages, Keiko said simply. I'll get back to them. The crowd round her couldn't believe what they were hearing. She was casually dismissing calls from the most powerful people in human space like they were telemarketers trying to sell her insurance. That's when Minho pushed through the crowd, his face desperate and sweaty. The confident arrogance that had defined him just minutes before had evaporated completely. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his perfect hair was disheveled, and his hands were shaking as he reached out toward Keiko. Dr. Park, he called out, his voice cracking with desperation. Please, wait. I think we got off on the wrong foot tonight. You have to understand. I was just joking round. Just having a bit of fun. Keiko turned to face him, her expression calm and patient. Were you? Yes, absolutely. Minho's laugh was high-pitched and nervous. You know how these parties are. Everyone likes to have a little laugh. But seriously, I've always respected your work. Always believed in the importance of scientific research. The crowd round them was silent, watching this pathetic display. Yuna, Minho's wife, was trying to hide behind a group of other guests, clearly mortified by her husband's behavior. My mining consortium, Minho continued, his words tumbling over each other in his haste to get them out. We have resources, connections, infrastructure. We could be partners. Think about it. You provide the technology. We provide the business expertise. We could make trillions together. Thank you, Keiko said, her voice polite but firm. But no. The rejection hit Minho like a physical blow. He actually staggered backward, his face going pale. But you have to understand. This is bigger than just you. This affects everyone. The entire economy of human space is going to change. You need experienced business partners to help you navigate. I've already decided how this technology will be distributed. Keiko interrupted. She gestured to Arya, who immediately began projecting a new set of displays round the room. These weren't financial charts or star maps, but legal documents and organizational charts. The words Park Foundation for Galactic Advancement appeared in glowing letters above their heads. The Park Foundation for Galactic Advancement, Keiko announced, her voice carrying clearly across the reception hall, will ensure this technology serves all of humanity, with priority access for educational institutions and underrepresented communities. The gasps that followed were audible throughout the room. This wasn't what any of them had expected. They had assumed that Keiko would auction off the technology to the highest bidder, that she would use her discovery to become just another ultra-wealthy elite like them. You're giving it away. Yuna's voice was barely a whisper, but in the silence of the hall, everyone heard her. I'm making sure it serves everyone, Keiko corrected. Not just the people who can afford to buy it. The legal documents floating in the air around them showed the foundation structure. Educational institutions would get free access to the communication network. Developing colonies would get priority for transportation nodes. Medical facilities would be able to instantly transfer patients to specialized treatment centers. Across the galaxy, this is insane, Minho said, his voice rising to almost a shout. You're talking about technology worth trillions of credits. You could buy entire star systems with what you're giving away. I could, Keiko agreed. But I won't. Outside the station, the chaos was spreading. News drones were swarming round Aurora Prime like angry insects, their cameras and sensors recording everything. The wedding that was supposed to be a private celebration of the elite had become the most watched event in human history. Inside the reception hall, the guests were starting to understand the full implications of what was happening. The old order, the one that had given them their wealth and power, was crumbling round them. The woman they had mocked was reshaping the galaxy according to her own vision. And there was nothing they could do to stop it. "Dr. Park," came a new voice from the crowd. It was Lee Ji-won, the groom, and he looked genuinely amazed. "Are you sure about this? You're talking about changing everything. Everything needs to change," Keiko replied. "Humanity has been held back for too long by the limitations of distance and the greed of a few. This technology can free us from both." She walked toward the quantum glass viewing wall, and the crowd parted before her like water. The stars outside seemed brighter now, no longer distant lights but destinations within humanity's reach. Ships were already beginning to arrive at Aurora Prime, drawn by the news of the discovery. Some were corporate vessels, others were government ships, and a few alien craft whose occupants had heard the news and wanted to see this miracle for themselves. "The first public transportation node will be operational within 6 months," Arya announced, her voice now being broadcast across multiple networks. "The initial route will connect Earth to the Centauri system, with stops at Mars, Europa, and Titan. Travel time, approximately 12 minutes. The crowd behind Keiko was completely silent now. They were watching the birth of a new age, and they were realizing that they had no place in it. The old ways of doing business, the old systems of power and control, were becoming obsolete before their eyes. "Keiko," came a familiar voice behind her. She turned to see Hannah Kim approaching, her wedding dress trailing behind her like a river of starlight. Her old friend's face was filled with wonder and something that might have been pride. "I always knew you'd change the world," Hannah said softly. Keiko smiled, the first completely genuine smile she had worn all evening. "Not just the world, Hannah, the entire galaxy." As if summoned by her words, a flash of light appeared in the distance. One of the ships outside the station had just activated its faster-than-light drive, disappearing in a burst of energy that painted the nebula in brilliant colors. It was the first of many that would follow, carrying the news of humanity's greatest discovery to every corner of known space. The future belonged to those brave enough to reach for it, and humanity had just taken its greatest leap forward among the stars. The woman who had been mocked as a dirt-poor archaeologist had become the architect of a new age, and the galaxy would never be the same. The party continued round them. But it was a different kind of celebration now. The old order was ending, and something beautiful and terrible and wonderful was beginning. In the distance, more ships were jumping to FTL, carrying hope and possibility to worlds that had never dared to dream of such things. The age of humanity among the stars had truly begun. The end.